This was a serious breach of security at one of Iraq's biggest oil installations. This time, it wasn't one of the pipelines or the oil fields, which is home to foreign investment. It's the biggest refinery in the country, the Beji refinery north of Baghdad. According to officials there, gunmen infiltrated the facility at 4:30 this morning, spraying the place with gunfire after they left as they laid bombs in control rooms. Those bombs set off fires that have caused extensive damage to a large part of the refinery. One engineer was killed by smoke inhalation, another technician killed by gunfire as the gunmen went out shooting. He says they're assessing not only the damage to the refinery, but exactly how this security breach could have happened. The facility is protected by a unit attached to the Ministry of the Interior. He says they are trying to increase confidence among staff who are afraid to come back to work. But in the short term, it will lead to a shortage of gasoline, a shortage of kerosene, and certainly have an impact on the confidence of Iraqis that their government can keep these installations safe.
Returning now to the situation in Libya, we can now talk to Ali Taher, who's with the Alliance for the Western Mountain Area, an opposition group. He joined us on the phone from Al-Zentan city, southwest of Tripoli. Mr. Taher, we're hearing now that the government is arming loyalist supporters and using these supporters against protesters. What can you tell us what's happening in your part of Tripoli?
Well, thank you for having me. They're going to do whatever it takes to quell the revolution here in the western part of Libya when they failed to do so in the eastern parts, in Benghazi area and Derna and other parts. People here are ready for them. There's an alliance now. It's developing in the whole West Mountain region. And the people here are steadfast. They want to show their resolve, and they arm themselves because they know for a fact that Mr. Gaddafi, unlike Ben Ali and Mubarak, will not leave because of demonstrations. They're going to face him hard on, like in your face kind of thing. They're going to hit him and hit him hard. There's just some areas that they feel that they have to be compromised. Tonight, actually, this evening, they attacked one checkpoint and they took 3 hostages. This is for a fact here in Zintan. This checkpoint is 70 kilometers away from Zintan, and they brought them here. They're government soldiers. And when they interviewed them, they said that they given orders to shoot with live ammunition. So
now, Mr. Taher,
getting hairy.
Okay, you are talking about an alliance there. Is that alliance preparing some kind of offensive against government forces in Tripoli?
Well, they're going for a peaceful demonstrations. They're going to go marching to Tripoli in the next few days, but they're readying themselves with arms, if that's what it takes. They will take the fight to Tripoli to face Gaddafi forces, because what's been happening is unbelievable. People just can't fathom the sheer power that Mr. Gaddafi is facing his own people with. Hiring mercenaries from all over the place. We got IDs, for Africans from all over the place, paid by Gaddafi to kill his own people. So they feel that the only way with this go is to really fight them off in the streets of Tripoli.
Okay, Mr. Taher, the former Justice Minister of Libya is talking about forming an interim government which will be based in Benghazi for now. Is that acceptable to the opposition?
Yes, it is acceptable. They don't want to leave the country in a political vacuum, so to speak. They want this interim government to be recognized by the international community. All they're asking for is democracy and like what's been happening in the West, maybe a Senate and Congress and presidency with the Constitution, maybe 2 terms max. One man, one vote. One woman, one vote. Libyan society is a secular society. It's not a religious society, in spite of what some people might say. There's no Al-Qaeda here, you know. It's cross-sectional, all ages, men, women. They want liberty and democracy, and they want a breath of fresh air, you know. We cannot reject that.
Okay.
Everything that the West.
Right. We are also hearing from both sides of the divide, actually, these fears being expressed that Libya could become fragmented. There could be an eastern part of Libya and there could be the rest of Libya. Do you think that's a danger?
No, there is no danger because the whole country is unified. They're united. Yes, it's a tribal society, but there is no fear there. Now with Facebook and the internet access, people are getting more educated. A lot of Libyans, go into the internet and see the world. You know, they know about democracy and they want it here. They want it at home. Me myself, I studied abroad. I saw what the democracy is all about, and they just want to change this tyrant regime, this dictatorship that lasts for 42 years. People just can't fathom this. And they cannot fathom the fact that a guy who claims that he's not president for 42 years, and at the end of it, instead of thanking people, he's calling them rodents and hiring mercenaries to come off because they said no after 42 years.
Okay, Mr. Tahir, we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you very much for joining us. Now let's go to Canada. Mahdi Darius Nazamiroya is a research associate of the Centre for Research and Globalization. He joins us from Ottawa in Canada. Sir, when we look at these latest measures being taken by Western countries against Libya, do you think they are sufficient enough to stop what is going on there?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
The latest measures which are being considered and in some cases being implemented by Western nations, the sanctions that are being considered against the regime of Colonel Gaddafi, do you think they're going to be sufficient to stop the violence in Libya and to stop what is going on there at the moment?
Number one, I don't think that they want to stop the violence. I think that this is mere bravado. I think that they want a civil war in Libya. They want balkanization.
Sorry, just excuse me, sir. When you talk about
African state of Libya.
Okay, when you talk about they, who are you referring to?
I'm referring to the so-called international community, which I want to get straight, is the United States and the European Union. They're not the international community, and I believe that they want to see a civil war in Libya. They want to see civil strife. Just like in Iraq after the Gulf War, the United States let rebellion break out for democracy, in fact. It was military officers, Shiites, Kurds, and they did not intervene. They used it as a blanket for keeping sanctions and no-fly zones over Iraq, which they used to water down Iraq and eventually invaded in 2003. I think we're seeing an Iraq model being replicated over Libya. We have to ask, where did these arms that Colonel Gaddafi is using, where are they coming from? They all came from the EU and the United States. Gaddafi's been a dictator for 42 years. You can't wake up today and say he's a dictator. He became a dictator yesterday. But he's been killing people for 42 years, and that's never stopped them from selling.
Let me just stop you there to ask you this. If you're saying that the countries of Western Europe, of the European Union and the United States is manipulating the situation there, how could they have manipulated these protests into what they are now?
Let me bring something up. The opposition figures that we're talking about, they're not human rights champions. We're seeing people from within the regime becoming opposition officials. We're seeing diplomats abroad who used to be ministers. In fact, the one that the Arab League ambassador tried to start a coup himself and take power before, until Gaddafi pardoned him. We're seeing these type of individuals talking about human rights and democracy. When they were a part of the regime, they helped crush democracy. The former justice minister of Libya, when he was justice minister, justice was asleep. Now he's talking about forming his own government. No, we do see a Western hand here. They armed Gaddafi. Now they're giving vocal support for the opposition. They want the country to fall apart, and then they want to intervene somehow. Maybe it'll be sanctions. Maybe it might be a Yugoslavia-style intervention. We hear NATO talking about no-fly zones. And the no-fly zones over Iraq, I want to be clear, were also illegal. Internationally illegal under international law.
If what you're saying is true, if what you're saying is true, that means these Western nations that you refer to triggered off these demonstrations in Egypt, as well as Tunisia, as well as in Bahrain, because this is where the Libyan protesters derived their motivation for these demonstrations. So it would be hard to believe that this has happened this way.
No, I'm not trying to frame things like that. There's multiple factors at play here. Multiple factors. That's what I'm trying to say. Multiple factors at play. I'm not trying to say that this is all a Western conspiracy. The people in Libya want democracy and they want freedom, just like how the people in Tunisia and Egypt wanted freedom. But listen, how the West treats those countries in Libya is very different. Gaddafi is an independent dictator. He wasn't a puppet dictator like Mubarak in Egypt or Ben Ali in Tunisia. Why don't they say anything about Bahrain when tanks fired into the protesters? They didn't come out strongly against Libya. No, you have to see things for what they are. And what they are here is we're seeing double standards applied. When Bahrain kills innocent civilian protesters, uses tanks, and they were not violent, we see nothing happening. But when in Libya there's violence, and let me tell you, the violence in Libya.
I think in all fairness, we have to say that there were very critical statements made by the United States and by the European Union when that violence took place in Bahrain. The other point
is there sanctions against Bahrain?
Well, there's no sanctions because there is no sanctions against Bahrain right now. The other point I just want to raise
is the British Prime Minister going into these countries and selling weapons. The British Prime Minister went to Egypt. Is Egypt a democracy yet? Has there been any change? Mubarak, this was a cosmetic change. Mubarak stepped down. I don't mean to be antagonistic, but Mubarak stepped down. The military's in charge, and who are the people part of the junta? It's all the same people Mubarak put in the cabinet. The Prime Minister, the Defense Minister, they're all the same people. Suleiman, all the same people are part of that junta. They sit in that committee. AlJazeera itself has reported that.
So if you're saying that the Western countries want to exploit the situation in Libya, why would they want to do that? Because they were getting what they wanted from Libya. They were getting the oil that Libya has. They had welcomed President...
No. They want more from Libya. That's just...
What more? What more do they want?
They want more from... I'm sorry for cutting you off. They want more from Libya. They want to privatize the oil in Libya. Is the oil in Libya privatized? Look what they did in Iraq. And in Iraq...